Zion and Hallie United Methodist Churches of Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, welcome you to online worship.
Greetings and welcome to this time of hope and this time of praise. Each week, one of our United Methodist clergy in the area will be sharing a Lenten devotion. My name is Dan Drollinger and I serve the Hallie and the Zion United Methodist churches here in the Chippewa Valley. In our devotion times, we are considering practices and ways that we can grow as Christians during this time that we call Lent.
It is true that Robben Island was once a place of darkness, but out of that darkness has come a wonderful brightness, a light so powerful that it could not be hidden behind prison walls, held back by prison bars, or hemmed in by the surrounding sea. A quote by Nelson Mandela about the cell that he inhabited in the prison on Robben Island. I'm Pastor Jen from the Augusta and Pleasant Valley United Methodist Churches. And as the Lenten season approaches, our circuit has decided to enter together into some sharing about spiritual practices. And the spiritual practice that I am sharing with you is about creating sacred space. In Exodus 3, 1 through 5, we read this. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he held the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals. For the place where you are standing is holy ground. Exodus chapter 3 gives us a picture of Moses in the far side of the wilderness. When Moses saw a bush on fire, what we know as the burning bush, he desired to approach it because he recognized something different about it. It burned, but it was not consumed. Now imagine the scene of Moses approaching the burning bush, but instead of being this holy burning bush area that God named as sacred, it also was littered with old mail and maybe an empty coffee cup or two and some pens and a stack of work yet to be done. It maybe wouldn't have seemed quite so holy. There is something very wonderful about having a sacred space to go to. It doesn't need to be in a church. In fact, very often it's not inside a building at all. We find sacred spaces all over when we are dedicated to looking for the holy things, when we're dedicated to making that space that allows us to tend our time with God. And we see that all the time in outdoor spaces, in our tiny little gardens, in the beauty of nature around us, at a lake where we can just sit and be. When we find sacred icons that speak to our souls, in watching God's creation grow. And being able to pray and walk and take in the nature around us. So why is this even something that we do? Well, we live in such a busy and frantic time, some of you have noted this, that creating sacred spaces has become critical. It's a critical practice for me in my journey to know Jesus better. A lot of people believe that they don't have enough time to experience the fullness of God. They say, well, I wish I had time to pray. I wish I had time to sit down and do this and really encounter God, but I'm working. I'm trying to take care of a home and the million other things that take up our time and our space. And with everything I have to do, I just don't have any time to really be spiritual. And oftentimes in this, we tend to rank Christians and their particular holiness. We look at some people and say that they're super Christians, those who have time to pray and seek God. And we think that those super Christians are the ones that God is really working in and through, and the rest of us are just kind of common Christians, or maybe not even that. And those designated into that lower rank just aren't as spiritual or special. But sometimes it's really just about finding a space and creating that space that allows us to experience the holy. As God had instructed Moses to do, we stop. We notice this holy space. Take off your shoes and just be and come closer to God. Slow down in that moment and in that space. And we all need to be able to do that. We all need a space. That's where the she shed and man caves come from. But a sacred space is something more. And it's something that allows you to see the glory of God revealed in more ways. We just had Transfiguration Sunday, where Jesus' whole being was revealed to these disciples that were with him in this holy and beautiful mountaintop experience. That is a sacred space. But our backyards can be a sacred space as well, and we do this all the time at church when we set up altars and decorate so that people can experience the theme and the message more fully. I'm going to show you a series of pictures that have been set up and taken here that I've created to express themes, so that as people walk in, there's a feeling of what is to come. We do this for ourselves, but we do this for other people as well. Anyone can set up a sacred space. But the first thing you need to do is decide what sacred means to you. You need a space for meditating, for praying, for reading the Word, for memorizing the Word, for centering prayer, just for your spiritual connection. To me, sacred is someplace, one, that I can keep a little bit tidy. It's uplifting and it's peaceful and it's spiritual. But you need to decide what that means for you. And then dedicate a spot or find a spot for that. Something that can become sacred, that's not going to be taken over by the clutter of life. It doesn't have to be a whole room. Just a corner of a room. The top of a dresser, a space in a bookcase. Any space that you can find where you go and, at least metaphorically, take off your shoes and experience the divine a little more closely. And add to that the things that make you think about God. When I teach confirmation, I have my classes do a confirmation project. And that project is something that, for them, relates their faith to the world around them. And for everyone, it's different. I've had people make brownies, paint pictures, write a poem. But inevitably, they can take that home to their space, and it becomes part of their holy space, their faith journey, their story. And then surround yourself with those things that are inspirational to you. And most of all, create the ritual. Go to that space. Make it a time for you and God, where you can go and just be in the presence more fully. Because no matter where we are, whether it's filled with bills and old mail and dirty coffee cups, or we're driving, God is there. But we don't always notice that, do we? For me, I create sacred space for people and myself a lot. But there are a couple different places that are more sacred, that call me. And that's how I know, for me, that a space is incredibly sacred. This is one of those spaces. This is one of those spaces. And this is one of those spaces. This is Pine Lake United Methodist Camp. And my soul yearns to be there. This is the one spot that I realize I keep wanting to return to. I notice that over time, energy builds when I know I'm going there. It's a go-to spot for decompressing the mind, body, and soul. And when I leave, I feel closer to God. I feel like I have been in the presence of the holy in a way that I'm not most other times in my life. Building altars isn't anything new. Building sacred spaces isn't something new age or progressive or anything. It's a common practice in the Old Testament for the Israelites. You can see that in Genesis 22:9, or Ezekiel 6:3, or 2 Kings 23:16 and 23. That's your homework. The first altar was built by Noah. Altars were built by Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Moses. These holy spaces that God calls us to, so that we can find some breath for our own journey. All of these scriptural fathers lived before the temple was built, so they had to meet with God and worship outside of a building, finding sacred space in places outside of church. So take heart. Take heart as we meet with God in spaces that are familiar and unfamiliar, in online Zoom meetings, across the information superhighway, in church, at home, outside. I wholeheartedly believe that the Spirit of God is with us in these days as we journey. Journeying with us, holding us close, spurring us onward, and keeping us together with grace, mercy, and love. And so, as a spiritual practice, I urge you to create a sacred and beautiful space for yourself. Go kick off your shoes and spend some beautiful moments with God.
God is in this place. We are surrounded by His grace. In an empty chair, in a stranger's face, God is in this place. God is everywhere. You can find Him here, you can find Him there. The invitation has been made. The table has been laid. On your knees or on your feet, in a quiet church or on a busy street. Calm your mind, take time to meet your God. God is waiting everywhere. Doesn't matter if you've brushed your hair, in your home or car. Come as you are and meet your God. God is in this place. We are surrounded by His grace. In an empty chair, in a stranger's face, God is in this place. God is in this place. We are surrounded by His grace. In an empty chair, in a stranger's face, God is in this place. In an empty chair, in a stranger's face, God is in this place.
Please join me in the words of the benediction. Go forth, abiding in God's love. Go forth, claiming your identity as beloved children of God. Go forth to share the good news with all you meet. Amen.